In this video, we're going to show you how to install the hub and bearing on your Ford Focus located behind your front wheels. Using a 19mm socket, we're going to loosen and remove the lug nuts. Remove the wheel and set it aside. Now with the wheel removed, you want to go ahead and remove this retainer clip here that's holding the brake flex hose. I'm going to use my pick here. There's a slot in the tab. Once it pops off, go ahead and grab that hose, slide that out of the strut bracket. On the back side here, we want to go ahead and remove our brake caliper and bracket. On the back side here, on our particular vehicle, they're 16mm. We're going to use our ratchet to go ahead, loosen, and remove these. Now before you remove this bolt completely, you want to go ahead and grab the caliper hook here. Once we remove this bolt, we're going to support the caliper and bracket and hang it on the strut spring itself. With the brake caliper and bracket removed, go ahead and grab your brake rotor, slide it off, and set it aside. Now we need to go ahead and remove our ABS speed sensor. It's bolted in place with an 8mm bolt, so go ahead and use your 8mm socket here and your ratchet. I'm going to go ahead and loosen and remove this bolt. Now this component here, if you want to go ahead and soak it down with some rust penetrant and let it soak for a little bit. Now I want to go ahead and pull this out, and sometimes it's kind of stuck in there. So I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver, and I just want to kind of tap in here gently to try and work this out a little bit, try and free it up. I have a little bit of movement here. I'm going to continue to spray this down with some rust penetrant and let that soak in. And if you gently work that, you should be able to pull that sensor up and out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the wire over here, and I'm going to pull this off of the bracket. Now this is attached to the strut. It's not necessary to do this, but it is going to keep it from being in the way of the knuckle. So I can go ahead and simply slide that out. And I'm going to drape that up into that strut spring itself, just to keep it out of the way. Using a 32mm socket, we're going to loosen and remove our axle nut. And go ahead and set that aside. Now you want to go ahead and make sure that the CV axle itself, the splines, are free from the splines on the hub. What you're going to do is push in on the center here, and if it's stuck, well, you want to go ahead and start by using some rust penetrant, spray it in here, let it soak into some of those splines. And what I like to do is use a punch of some sort, put in here, and knock this in. You can see that it's moving. Now remember, I'm using a punch in the center here. Do not smash the end of the axle itself. You're going to mushroom over the threads, and you're never going to get that axle nut back on. You can reach in the back here, grab that axle, and should be able to move that back and forth. Okay. Okay, that's free enough so we can go ahead and separate that from the wheel hub later on. We now want to go ahead and disconnect our tie rod end here from the knuckle. On our particular vehicle, we have a 16 millimeter nut. We're going to go ahead and loosen and remove this. Now what you want to do is use a hammer and you want to strike the knuckle itself here, and that'll pop that tie rod end out. Just like so. We want to go ahead and separate our ball joint from our knuckle. On the bottom here we have a pinch bolt, and this uses a T50 Torx bit. On the other side we're going to have a 15 millimeter nut. So I want to go ahead and loosen and remove this. Now in most cases this bolt here will normally be stuck in there. We went ahead and we soaked ours down with some rust penetrant here and let it soak for quite a while. But in some cases here, if it is stuck, put the nut back on a few threads and then tap that nut to go ahead and push this bolt through. And as it works its way through, loosen that nut until it comes through, and then you can go ahead and pop that out. Now at this point here, we can go ahead and separate our ball joint from the knuckle. Take a pry bar, put it into the hole here, and you go ahead and pry this down. Popping that out, removing the dust shield here. All right, let's go ahead and start to work this axle out. And we want to go ahead and pull the knuckle out and away. Now that we have our CV axle out, you want to go ahead and protect the ball joint boot here. I'm going to go ahead and just simply take a shop rag. I'm going to wrap that boot. That way they don't have to worry about damaging that. Now we're going to move up here to the top portion. Now we're going to remove this pinch bolt. This is an 18 millimeter, and this clamps onto our strut assembly. Now simply going to use our ratchet, and we want to go ahead and loosen and remove this bolt. Now this bolt is the last component holding the knuckle to the strut assembly. Now I'm going to use my hammer. I'm going to hold on to this knuckle, and I'm going to go ahead and tap this down off of our strut assembly. And on the back side here, there's a little notch. You can go ahead and I'm going to pop our chisel into here. It should open that up a tiny bit and try and knock this off a little. And here it comes. Now that we have our knuckle removed, let's go ahead and get over to the bench. Now we have our knuckle set up here. We need to go ahead and remove this snap ring from the back side of our unit. Now normally you're just going to grab a pair of snap ring pliers and go ahead and pop them in there and pinch that and close it. However, if you notice here, we can't really get our snap ring tips in here without it catching on here. And if you go up at an angle, it's just not going to grab there practically. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and loosen this snap ring. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take a chisel, and I'm going to start to go around the perimeter on the snap ring and try and break free some of the rust that's on here. Now we're not able to rotate the snap ring itself because there's still some rust built up inside here, but we are able to move these tabs a little bit. I'll go ahead and try and get a screwdriver in here. Now make sure you're wearing safety glasses when doing something like this here. There's a possibility that snap ring could break, and you want to make sure that your eyes are protected. So at this point here, we're able to get up a portion of this snap ring on this side here. I'm going to go ahead and try and pull that one out as well. Unfortunately, the other one might pop back in. But our goal here is to try and get that rust broken free around the perimeter. You can see what I'm doing is I'm slowly working my screwdriver around, and there it goes. It's starting to come up now. And be careful of the snap ring. It could pop out. Just using my screwdriver and kind of put it in there and rotate it. And there we go. Got our snap ring out. Our next step is to go ahead and bring this over to the press. Now we have our knuckle set up in the press. We're going to go ahead and work on pressing out the hub itself out of the bearing. Alright, and we have the hub pressed out. Alright, let's go ahead and press the bearing out now. There's our bearing. Now I went ahead and I cleaned up the inside of our knuckle here to make sure that there was no rust on the inside, so we can go ahead and install our new bearing. Now on the bearing itself, you're going to notice one side is going to have a dark ring, the other side is going to be a silver ring. Well, this is the ABS side pickup. It's a magnetic side, and you don't want to have anything metal touching that black strip. So what we did was, we're going to set this in the knuckle here. We took the old bearing and we took out the bearings that were in here with a race. So it's just a rubber seal with the perimeter of the bearing being steel. This is going to come in contact with the outer portion of the bearing here. So there's no metal on the inside to affect that. I'm going to set that right on top, and we're going to use that to press this in. Let's go ahead and press that bearing in. You see it starting to go in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this down pretty much until there's resistance. That tells me that the bearing itself is seated on the other side on that lip. You can go ahead and take a look on the inside here as well as the outside. Make sure that bearing is completely flush and it looks pretty good. Now we can go ahead and install our snap ring around the inside here. Now that we have our bearing pressed into the knuckle, we now want to get and install our snap ring. Now the snap ring installation is important, and if you don't do this right the first time, you're going to be doing this job a second time, tearing everything apart. The opening of the snap ring needs to be open towards the ABS port hole in the knuckle. This is very important. Otherwise, the snap ring is going to block that hole. You're not going to be able to install the ABS sensor, and you're going to end up with a code right away, right out of the box. So go ahead and grab that snap ring. Perfect. Make sure that snap ring is in all the way. And then you can see we have that opening for our ABS speed sensor to poke through. Now we have our knuckle set up. We're going to go ahead and press our hub down through the top. So just press that down. And at this point here, our press is pretty much firm. It tells me that our hub is fully seated. I'm going to go ahead and release this, and you definitely want to do a visual inspection. You want to take this out, and you want to check the back side. Make sure that the hub itself is right in line with the bearing, and then flip this over, give it a spin. Everything is perfect. Let's go ahead and install the unit. Let's go ahead and work our knuckle up into position. We want to make sure that the slit itself lines up with the tab on the back of the strut. Get our bolt lined up here. I'm going to go ahead and gently snug this down. We'll come back and torque that down later. Now what we're going to do is work our axle into the splines on our hub itself. We're going to go ahead and put some anti-seize compound on those splines. Don't forget to install the shield here. Install our pinch bolt and get that nut started on the other side. Let's go ahead and snug this down. Let's go ahead and torque down our lower pinch bolt to 46 foot-pounds. Let's torque down our strut to knuckle bolt to 111 foot-pounds. Install your tie rod end. Go ahead and snug that down. And let's torque that down to 26 foot-pounds. Now let's go ahead and spray the wheel hub with a little bit of anti-seize compound. Let's go ahead and install our ABS wire. I'm going to go ahead and install the sensor first, lowering that down into position. Get our bolt started. Let's go ahead and gently snug that down. And once that's bottomed out, just give it a tiny bit more. It just needs to be snug. And go ahead and grab your harness here. I'm going to go ahead and install it into the bracket. Go ahead and take your brake rotor, line that up. I'm going to go ahead and grab our brake caliper and bracket, remove it off of our supporting hook here. And let's go ahead and line this up onto our brake rotor. Let's go ahead and install the upper bolt on the back of our caliper bracket. I'm going to get that upper bolt started. That's going to hold the caliper and the bracket assembly together there. Then we can go ahead and get that lower bolt started. Once we have them both started, we can go ahead and tighten them down. Let's now go ahead and torque out our caliper bracket bolts to 92 foot-pounds. Go ahead and take your flex hose, going to line this up, pull that through, and install your clip. There we go. Make sure that the little raised portion faces the inside. Go ahead and install your axle nut. And we'll snug that down. Now let's go ahead and torque it. I want to go ahead and torque down our axle nut to 199 foot-pounds, and you can do this a couple different ways. You can have someone hop into the vehicle, apply the brakes so it keeps that rotor from turning, or you can use a screwdriver. I like to use a screwdriver or a pry tool, put it inside the cooling fins, and let it lock up against the caliper bracket. And as you apply rotational pressure here, it'll lock that tool in place. And we want to tighten this to 199 foot-pounds. Go ahead and take your wheel, line it up on the wheel studs, and let's go ahead and get the lug nuts started. I'm going to start them all by hand, and then we'll come on back and snug them down. When snugging these down, it's ideal to do them in a crisscross pattern. Let's go ahead and torque down our lug nuts to 94 foot-pounds. And ideally, you want to do this in a crisscross pattern. And there you have it.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.